Okay, after a query is run, we get our first report, and then from that point on, we can set properties for the characteristics, for key figures, and for the query itself to format the reports. Okay, for instance, as shown here, for characteristics, we can set the display methods or display options, the sorting, ordering attributes, and so on. For key figures, we can set the number format. We can also set options related to calculations, sorting, and so on. And for the query itself, we can set options for layout, for the data formatting, and also specify how to convert currency and so on. Okay, we can also enter local formulas, and this is used mainly to define calculated key figures. Okay, in other words, in addition to the key figures that are stored in BW, we can also calculate some key figures of our own, based on existing key figures when we are doing the reporting. And then after we are done with analysis, we may want to save the workbook for future use, and the workbook may be saved on the server itself, and it can also be saved locally on your local machine. Okay, so there are two different options there. All right, next topic is to build an analysis application. Remember, I mentioned earlier that Analyzer basically has two modes: the design mode and the analysis mode. Okay, so when we are ready to build our own application, we need to get into design mode and utilize design functions, and some of them are shown on the next few slides. Okay, first, design mode. In the design mode, we can create the interface for our reports, and also the analysis component. Okay, so once we click on the analysis, the design icon, we'll see all the icons at the top of the menu, at the top of the toolbar, become visible, which means that we can then use those icons to build an analysis. For instance, the one right next to the design mode icon is analysis grill, which you see at the bottom of the screen there. The analysis grill allows us to display data from a query, for instance. Okay, so your workbook will turn into something like the example shown here. Okay, you don't see the actual data, but you see some icons display when you are in the design mode. Okay, so we can use analysis grid, we can use filters, we can use command buttons, checkbox, and so on. Okay. On the next slide, it shows two examples. One is drop-down box. The other is a radio button. Okay, so we have actually many possible interface items that we can use to build an interface for our reports. All right. Next topic is to run Beck's Web Analyzer. Okay, basically, Beck's Analyzer, the report is run inside Excel. But other times, we may want to make the option available so that a report can be run inside a browser. And that will be Beck's Web Analyzer. Okay, and as shown here, a Web Analyzer can be accessed through either a portal or from a web browser. Okay, now in the book they use a portal, but we don't have the portal set up properly, so we cannot follow the example there. Instead, I ask you to access the Web Analyzer from inside Web Analyzer. Okay, so it's a little bit complicated. It's a little bit different from what is described in the book, but you'll be able to use the Web Analyzer. I have also indicated in the assignment, so you can look at the instructions there. Okay. All right. When we use the Web Analyzer, we can also create a new analysis, just like we can with Beck's Analyzer. Okay. So you can start with a new analysis by clicking on the New Analysis button, and then from that point on, you can specify several options. Okay, first is to specify a data provider for your analysis, and your data provider can be either a query, which is probably the most common data provider. Okay, a query that has been created before cannot be used as the data provider to your analysis. But other times we can also use a view of a query, okay, or other info provider, which we'll talk more about in the future. Okay. And then we can also, set up other options such as display as, kind of like the Beck's Analyzer. We can display the data in tables, or we can display the data in graphics. Okay, so we can set up our report in either way. We can also set up the information and how do we whether we want to send the report to a particular user, set up printing option. We can also export the report to Excel for further processing, and so on. Okay, all those options are described in detail in the book, and you can follow the example there. And then after you set up your analysis report, you can then perform overlay, slice and dice, changing the axis by rotation and so on. Okay, the operations are similar to Beck's Analyzer, so I won't get into detail again here. And again, you can also set up filter and other analysis settings for the analysis that you created in a Web Analyzer. Okay, so for instance, you can configure filters, and you can also configure settings for the tables, for the graphics, any exceptions or conditions, data providers, and so on. Exception and conditions we will talk more about in the chapter on Query Designer. Okay, so we will get into more detail later on. Okay. Finally, there are also other front-end tools that can be used along with SAP BW. As shown here, a lot of them are business objects front-end tools. As I mentioned before, this company was acquired by SAP mainly because of their excellent front-end BI tools. So now those tools are integrated with BW, so we can use those tools to analyze data coming out of SAP BW warehouse. At the same time, we can also use certain third-party tools. Some of them are displayed here. So a company has lots of choices in terms of reporting and analysis tools that can be used with SAP BW. Finally, you may skip section 10.9 and 10.10 of the book. They are more specialized applications for reporting, and plus we don't have them set up here in our environment, so there is no way to practice them anyway. So you can ignore them for this particular chapter.